17, and we're here with Fireside Chat, week number 4 with Grandma. And our first story this evening goes back to the mining days, back when Americans actually worked. Tell us, Great Grandma, did Grandpa ever get in trouble in his school days?
Well, Grandpa was in 7th grade to the schoolhouse in Rockville. I imagine it was a little 2-room schoolhouse. And he was, I don't know if he's mouthing off or acting up. And the teacher came by and knocked him out of his seat. And he straightened right up and behaved. And he told his brother David, "Don't you tell about this." But of course, the news got to B-Pops, his dad, and he said, "Are you going to study, or shall I take you and show you what it's like down in the mines?" He said, "Oh, okay." So I went with him one night down the mine and showed him what it was like down in the mines, going way down, showing how those cars could get loose and roll over and kill somebody, and a lot of different other things pointed out to him. And then Stan realized, I don't want to do that all my life. So he straightened up pretty good and got studied. He was always a good student, not from then on. His father, went down to the mines in the 3rd grade because he wouldn't study. And his dad just took him down the mines, and that became his life. But he became a very good miner. He knew how to run a mine. And he was in charge a lot of times. And this is how we met our friends, the Benai family, because they were there in Utah, which is the only place there was a mine running at the time. And Monday invited the Benai children to the Sunday school. And B-Pops knew their dad would come over from Japan. And his wife was, there was a name for him. I don't know what it was. A young Japanese girl came over to marry the Japanese men. And so one of Stan's favorites was Paul Benai, their son. And they sort of grew up together those few years in Utah. And we stayed friends with them. And one of the main reasons we did, something happened in the mine, and B-Pops wasn't there in that particular area. When he came by, something had fallen on one of the men, and he said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Oh, it's just a Jap. He's caught under there." He said, "A Jap, he's a human being. Get him out of there." And he made him lift the big, heavy, whatever it was, pull Paul Benai's father out. He had a broken back. So they got him out, and the doctor came, of course, and they left the mine because he couldn't work anymore, and he came to California after that. And later we were reacquainted with them, and they never forgot Stan's father, and they never forgot the Smith family.
That's why you need to get an education, kids, so you don't go into the mine.
That's why Stan got an education. He did not want to go down in the mine.
So, Great Aunt Ellen asked on behalf of the family about discovering the properties, and we already learned about the discovery of Mammoth Lakes. Take us back to the Rolling Hills days.
Rolling Hills, we were living in Hawthorne at the time in a house that had been moved on a corner. We bought for, I think it was around $5,000 or $4,500. And it was a big old 2-story house that had been brought there and put on that corner lot. And it was great after the tiny, tiny 20 by 20 house we had over in Watts. And so we had an upstairs bedroom for the boys, and there was a living room, dining room, down below, a nice kitchen and back porch, and a nice bedroom for us and bathroom. And the family kept increasing. Meantime, Stan was more or less permanent at Gardena High, and some of the teachers were looking into buying and building houses. And one of the teachers started to build a house and asked Stan to help. And Stan would go over and lift, and pretty soon he thought, this isn't too bad. So he said, let's look for some property around here. And we found some in Torrance, but it was near some oil wells. We thought, oh no. Then we found, I think it was a big lot or acre up in what they call Rolling Hills, which was just starting to have houses built up there. And so we went to see this lot. Well, when we walked up with 7 children, the man who was selling it lived in one house and had this big lot next door. He took one look at this big family and thought, I don't want that next to me. So he said, no, it's not for sale. So we thought, but we liked the area. We looked at it. So I would look, I don't know why I was always looking in the ads on Sunday paper, but I'd look. And one day I saw 2.4 acres, Rolling Hills. I think it was $4,000. So I told Stan, so we all hopped in the car and up we went and found it. And it looked pretty nice, and it was above this big, which we found out later was an old mine, a big hole in the ground in front of the property where they'd been done mining. So we checked into it and thought, this was pretty nice, and so we bought it. It had a big old tree in the middle of it, and we used to go up and have sort of a picnic under that tree on Sundays. And Stan thought, we could probably build our own house. That's how we started thinking about it. And that's how we got the property, $4,000. And your dad, of course, thought if you had a college education, you could read a book and do anything. If he could build a house, well, we started. I have a story that I've written about when he was going to rent a tractor and dig the foundation one day. So I left him there and took the little children with him to do shopping or different things. Well, he went to rent the tractor, which he did. And when I got back, no digging, nothing. And all the guys are laying on their backs in the grass. And I thought, what's going on? He said, well, the tractor broke down. Well, that didn't help. But eventually, he got his football players to come out. We were all out there digging the foundation, measured it, dug it ourselves, and there it went from weekend to weekend. And he'd have a lot of football players come and help. And if he didn't know how to do something, he wouldn't tell me, or he knew I'd freak out. He'd say, well, I'm tired of doing this, let's do something else. Then he'd go to a plumber or electrician or somebody and find out how to do it. So that's how Craig and Bruce all became the builders they are today. Of course, Bruce is a pro at it now. So, but all the kids learned to at least pound nails and carry lumber, where Louie was the little mother while I was pounding nails or being the gopher and going for everything, taking care of the babies. Then we'd go back in the evening to Hawthorne, and I'd have to get everything ready for the next day, for school, the meals and everything. And then same thing the next weekend. And when they went to school, I'd drop them off, and up I'd go to Rolling Hills, and I'd be cleaning up the mess and pounding nails. And that's when Jacqueline was 18 months, was crawling around with a big 16, they call it the 16 nail, big one, in her mouth like this. And she got tired, so I had an old bed on there, and I put her down on the bed to take a little nap. And all of a sudden she would gulp, and I said, oh my gosh, where'd the nail go? And she'd swallowed it. So I picked her up, ran to the car, and ran down to the hospital. So all they could give me was something like oatmeal to give her. It said, it'll come out in the wash eventually. Well, I guess it did, but I never found it. She might still have it in her. Then I'd go back and pick up the kids from school and back to Hawthorne and get ready for the next day. So it was quite a lot of fun, and we moved in as soon as it was possible. In those days, the inspectors were very helpful. We had one inspector, and he was very helpful and very nice. And we did something, he wouldn't turn us in or anything else, he just helped us. And one day I was out digging a ditch, and they came to put the electricity in, and a bunch of the linemen came over and saw me digging in the ditch, or digging, I guess, the trench for the sewer. And he said, "Boy, what did I tell my wife this?" So everybody in the family did everything when we were building. That's how they learned to help. That's how we found the house, and it was a good deal because that became quite a nice favorite area. And the house, of course, became a very nice home for us all.
Worked hard in that Rolling Hills house and come from a generation of hard workers going back quite a ways, which takes us to our next question from Grandma Noni, who asked about the tale of three wives.
Oh, this is Bebop's father, who was born in Scotland, and he had a lovely girlfriend named Roamin, and she was tiny, but his father convinced him, "Nay can marry her, she'll nae have stalwart sons." Well, in those days, sons listened to their fathers. So George listened to his father, and he started dating her best friend, who was a big, tall woman that his father realized could have stalwart sons. Well, didn't work out that way. She died with their first baby in childbirth. By that time, Miriam had said to him before, "If I nae can have you, I'll nae have anyone." And she went off to work for the gentry and became a cook and whatever they did, working for the gentry. Well, after his wife died, George I don't know whether there was no work or what, but he traveled to England, and he met Sarah Jordan. Mr. Jordan was his father. He met him first, and Mr. Jordan liked him and took him in, and I don't know what kind of work he did in England. It might have been in my mind. But he always wore a suit, so it makes me think his father was some kind of a bookkeeper, and so was George, and had really had some education. So he ended up marrying Sarah Jordan. Well, they had 2 babies while they were living in England, but they died of scarlet fever. And about that time, I guess they decided to come to America. So they came to America and ended up in Rockville. And their 3rd child is the first child buried in the Rockville Cemetery. So babies didn't live too long there. They were too, things happened. So he couldn't get work as a bookkeeper or anything, so he had to go down the mines. And you see the picture of him, he always has a suit on. When he came out of the mines and cleaned up, he put that suit back on. So he was more than a miner, I know that. I never met him. She ended up having altogether 13 children and died at the birth of the 13th child, whom he named Clarence. Well, George was having a hard time. How could he take care of the 10 children that were left, or 9 anyhow, and then the baby? And a cousin in Denver, who had no children, asked if she could take the baby. Well, he consented. He said, yes, I'll let you take it, and then we'll come visit him until he can come with us. And so she said, but she just never told him that he wasn't hers. She always told him he was her baby. So when George would go with the other kids to visit, they'd tell him he was their brother. And it confused him, I'm sure, because his mother always said, no, you're my baby. And they'd say, you're our brother. But anyhow, he grew up in a good family in Denver. And I thought the story of that. But after a while, George was thinking about what Merriman said. So he wrote her in Scotland, wherever she was, and asked her, he says, do you still feel the same as you did back then? I have 9 children here that need a mother. If you could come and marry me, I'll pay your passage. At that time, I guess she was ready to quit, and she wrote back, you nay send the passage, I'm on my way. And she came bringing him a gold watch, which I think Bruce has right to this day. And so she became a stepmother. And of course, in those days, kids always thought a stepmother was a witch. But Miriam was a very nice, sweet woman. But Bebops was always giving her trouble, because he was always a troublemaker in the family. So do you want to see the picture of him?
Let's see him.
This is the second wife, Sarah Jordan.
That's the one that had 13 kids?
Yep. And this is his first love and third wife, Mariam. I think it's M-A-R-I-A-M. We do not have a picture of the first wife. Stan remembers Mariam, the stepmother.
Well, there you have it. Your great heritage from Scotland. A tale of 3 wives. And why you have that lovely accent.
Peter has it.
So that wraps it up for Fireside Chats with Grandma, week number 4. And we'll be back for week number 5 next Thursday.
Gloamin with my laddie by my side. When the sun has gone to rest, that's the time that we love best. Oh, it's lovely roaming in the gloam.